Chelsea against Aston Villa, as John Terry returns to Stamford Bridge for the first time since leaving for Aston Villa as a player at the end of the 16-17 season, while the Blues simply need to get back to winning ways, which could be boosted by a possible return from injury by Tammy Abraham. Hello there guys, and welcome back to Blues Fans TV for another Premier League preview of mine on this channel, for a midweek Premier League preview of mine. We haven't had that so far this season. It's an interesting one, as Chelsea are to take on Aston Villa tomorrow evening, on Wednesday evening, with the kickoff being at 7:30 UK time at Stamford Bridge, of course, and I'm looking forward to it. We really need this game, really need this win, but it's also going to be strange. I mentioned in the intro already, John Terry is back at the Bridge, and this time in the opposition's dugout, not as like just a fan or just as a random guy on the stand, as he has been plenty of times since leaving, obviously at the end of the 16-17 season. And it will be strange. It will be really strange, but I'm sure he'll receive, an absolutely monstrous, reception from the fans, as he should, as he really should. But hopefully after that, we can win the game before then chanting his name again after the final whistle, because we really, really need this win. Like, we really do. We need to get back to winning ways. The performance against West Ham was poor. The performance against Valencia was poor as well, but we got kind of away with it there. And then we lost to City as well, but we weren't actually that bad, but we lost. So we really need to get back to winning ways. And Villa, let's be honest now, as much as they're a good team, we should be capable of beating them. And as usual, let's just start it off by speaking about them. They currently sit in 14th on 15 points from the 14 games played so far, with 4 wins, 3 draws and 7 losses, but a rather impressive goal difference considering how far down the table they are. And a goal difference, like I say, of -1, having scored 21 but conceded 22. Just 2 more than Chelsea actually, which, okay, maybe it's not so impressive for Villa, maybe it's just a bit bad for us, I guess, whichever way you want to put it. But they're still only 3 points above the relegation zone, which kind of surprised me when I looked at the table. Their 2 most recent results were good. A 2-2 draw away at Manchester United on the weekend, getting the equaliser after going 2-1 down as well, and beating Newcastle 2-0 the week before. But before that, 3 league defeats on the bounce. 2-1 to Wolves, a very late and kind of unfortunate 2-1 home defeat to Liverpool, and before that, I guess a rather expected 3-0 loss to Manchester City. Now, when everyone is fit for Aston Villa, they usually line up in a 4-3-3 formation, but a 4-3-3 that very quickly changes into a 4-5-1 or a 4-1-4-1 when they're off the ball. They do that change very seamlessly, if you will. And unlike Norwich in particular, also possibly Sheffield to an extent, Villa are a bit more of the traditional promoted side. They don't mind a long ball to their striker. They don't mind, to defend deep and try to use their powerhouse of a striker in Wesley to somewhat bulldoze his way through and just forward through the defence, I guess. And they don't mind not having the ball that much. Of course, that varies from opponent to opponent. Against Burnley, they drew 2-2 and they had way more of the ball, but that's Burnley. Most of the other teams they play, they have a bit less of the ball. So, they don't mind doing any of that. When Norwich, on the other hand, they really like to have the ball. They actually want to, have more possession than most of their opponents. And I guess Villa are doing a bit better than Norwich at the moment. Their danger men are without doubt Jack Grealish, still not sure how you actually pronounce his name, who scored an absolute screamer at Old Trafford on the weekend especially, and is genuinely, in my opinion, very underrated by a lot of people. So far this season, he has 3 goals and 4 assists. Also, need to mention John Mcginn, also a great footballer in midfield, 3 goals and 2 assists for him. And, I mentioned their striker already earlier, the absolute monster of a striker, their top goal scorer in Wesley. And then also winger Anwar El Ghazi is also on 3 goals and 4 assists like Jack Grealish is. But he will actually miss the game against us tomorrow with a knee injury, so I guess that is a bit of a boost for us in that sense. And then I also do need to mention the centre-back Tyrone Mings, who isn't necessarily a threat for our goal, but certainly their main guy when it comes to stopping us from scoring. But to be honest, that was really it about Aston Villa. It's going to be a difficult game, It's going to be a very difficult game, but if we turn up, let's be honest now, we should be more than capable of beating them. But now, let's get into Mr. Frank Lampard's pre-match press conference, which was pretty interesting today, actually. So let's get straight into it. Of course, the first question was about Mr. Tammy Abraham. And on him, the boss stated that he's still in some pain, but he will be given every opportunity to be fit for the game tomorrow night. But basically just said that it will be a late judgment call tomorrow, whether he's going to be able to either start or make the bench or not be involved at all. And it will just depend on how bad the pain is, and also if/how much it will affect, his ability to move, etc. He actually followed that up by saying that Christian Pulisic starting up front as sort of a false 9 could be an option that he might actually look at, which, we'll get to that in a bit. He also then stated Ross Barkley has been ill on the weekend, I guess, and won't be available for the game tomorrow either. While on the other hand, Antonio Rudiger The boss actually said that he's getting very much so closer to his return and really stepped up his training efforts this week. And they're kind of hoping for him to be fit and kind of ready to be part of the squad in the next week to 10 days. Don't expect him to start in the next week to 10 days, but maybe come on in a couple of games towards the end. And then kind of, I guess, the most interesting thing, bar, Tammy Abraham being possibly fit, is that Frank Lampard said that he is actually expecting a decision for the transfer ban appeal with the CAS or CAS, whatever you want to call it, in the actual coming days. So we are about to hear whether we will be able to sign anyone in January or not. I have my opinions on the whole matter, whether I actually want that to happen or not, but let's just find out what happens and then we'll talk about it, because it certainly will have quite a big impact on what happens to Chelsea in January, in my opinion. It will have a big impact. But that was it from the press conference. Now getting to Chelsea. And to be fair, I will admit I might have been a little bit too harsh on Olivier Giroud with my choice of words after the game against West Ham. But I still fully stand by the fact that I said, he should never start for us again. He just shouldn't. He's a good player to bring off the bench. Sometimes you need a tall, strong player in there to bring on for the last, half an hour, 20 minutes. But he shouldn't start. It's just not a thing that Lampard should be doing. So that's my first and main plea to Lampard. Please don't start Giroud again. Please don't. And personally, I'm also not the biggest fan of starting with a false nine. When they're as good as Eden Hazard is, maybe that is an option. We did it under Conte, we did it under Sarri. Maybe that is then an option. Even then, it only worked at times. But I don't see Pulisic being that good. And also, he's good, but he's not Hazard good just yet anyway. Don't think he ever will be, but, he's not there. Also, the fact that we only have 4 wingers. We don't have any more than that. And starting a false nine, meaning any winger change we would like to make, means Pedro would have to come on because he would then be the only winger on the bench. And I'm not into that at all. So false nine, not happening in my opinion. But of course, starting with the line up from the back, Kepa will be in goal. The 2 centre-backs, in my opinion, should remain Tomori and Kurt Zouma. Don't think Christensen was good enough against Valencia to justify coming back into the side, and Rudiger isn't fit just yet. And then coming to the more interesting bit, I guess, is the 2 fullbacks. Now, I personally would like to see Reece James start again, actually. But seeing as he started both of the last 2 games against Valencia and West Ham, while Aspie and Emerson only started 1 each, I think the likelihood is that Reece James doesn't start this one. I guess that's just a bit of rotation in that position, and, that would just make the most sense to me. Although I personally wouldn't mind going without Aspilicueta again, because I'm still not the biggest fan of him at left-back, and like I said at the beginning, I would quite like to see Reece James start, but I think the most likely is Aspie and Emerson. And then coming to midfield, I don't know. We tried a midfield without Kante. We lost the game against West Ham without, in the midfield 3 without Kante. But did we lose because of that? Personally, I don't believe so. I don't believe that had an effect. I think we arguably would have been even worse going forward had Kante started and, for example, Mount been taken out of that team, I guess. But frankly, I have absolutely no clue who I actually think should start against Aston Villa tomorrow. I've said it before and I'll say it again. To me, Jorginho is near an undroppable. I think he's one of, if not the most important player to our team. I know a lot of you will disagree with that, but that's what I firmly believe. But the only argument that I do see, and that is basically that unlike Kovacic, Kante and any other player in our entire squad really, Jorginho actually played every single game for his national team as well this season. So bar the Palace game that he was suspended for, he actually didn't get a single game's rest so far. Not a single game. I'm pretty sure he started every single other game. Maybe before we go into the Christmas period and before we have that ginormous game against Lille in the Champions League next week, a little rest for him wouldn't be the worst thing. Even if we really need to win this game against Villa tomorrow to get back on track, I think it wouldn't be a bad shout to actually give Jorginho a bit of a rest, because I think he could do with one, especially with him being taken off, for most games recently. I'm like, we shouldn't do that. Make him fully fit so he's fine to play the entire thing. I don't think it's always necessarily a tactical change. I think he's just absolutely dead tired. So personally, I would go for Kante, Kovacic and Mount in the midfield. That's for the most part a 4-2-3-1 midfield, I guess. But coming to the wingers, like I said, I wouldn't start a false 9. So for the wingers, firstly, Willian has to come back into the team. There is absolutely no question about it whatsoever. And what I'm not 100% sure about, though, is whether Hudson-Odoi starts on the other side or whether Pulisic, stays in the side. Now, personally, I'd say yes. I'd say Hudson-Odoi gets this start, mostly because Pulisic has played pretty much every game recently, and like Jorginho, could probably do with a bit of a rest. And, Hudson-Odoi's been out, played and missed 2 games with a hamstring injury, came on in the last one. Start him. Hopefully he works hard defensively as well. And, after 60 minutes or so, just to not overdo it for his hamstring, bring Pulisic on for him. I think that would probably be the best thing to do in that position. And as for the striker, now, if Tammy can start, of course he has to, will, and should start. I mean, obviously. But if he can only make the bench, or not even be in the squad, for me, Batshuayi should be the one that starts. I mean, I explained earlier why false 9 isn't an option for me. and most of you will know my feelings about Olivier Giroud, especially if you watched my review of the West Ham game. But honestly, I just hope that Tammy can start, because I think anything else is a massive downgrade at the moment, as sad as that is, in all honesty. As for the game, I think it's generally going to be a rather similar game to the West Ham, match, obviously, on Saturday. Yeah, on Saturday. Similar situation in the table, where West Ham were before the game against us and where Aston Villa are now. While the Hammers usually like to have the ball, which Aston Villa don't do so much, West Ham didn't really have it so much against us. So I expect a similar game overall. A team difficult to break down, hoping to hit us on a break or from a set piece, like so many teams have already done this season, and then, nick that 1-0 win, or at least nick a point. That's what Aston Villa are going to try to do. But like Lampard said in his press conference, actually, we need to get the basics right. There were basics against West Ham that we just didn't do, and basics that we did for most of the season so far, but we just didn't do it against West Ham. We need more movement. We need much quicker movement. We need, movement that the teammates know is going to happen. Not just random movement. We need to just be fluid with each other and know what the other one is going to do. The passing needs to be much quicker. We need to make way more runs, whether that's in behind or out wide, by pretty much every player. And we just need to show more intensity as well, and then also committing a couple of fouls throughout, unlike against West Ham when we actually didn't commit a single foul, which is still outrageous to me. I mean, don't foul on purpose, but it just happens when you're kind of in the game. Okay, if we win, I don't care. But if we lose a game and we don't commit a single foul, then I'm not a big fan of that. Generally, we're just a much better team than Aston Villa. I said that already before. And we just need to get our confidence back and show that on the pitch. And if we can, I think we'll win. My score prediction is going to be a narrow and tight 2-1 home win. I said, so people on Twitter say, we need to absolutely batter Aston Villa. We need to make a statement after a poor run of games, I guess, or a poor run of results. I'm not sure. I just think we need to get back to winning, and once we get back to winning, we can think about winning more clearly, big wins. We can think about that later. But to be honest, that has really been it from me. I guess the only other thing to mention is that in the FA Cup third round draw, we were drawn against Nottingham Forest. We will play them at Stamford Bridge in January. I think it's in January anyway. So is it interesting? Is it not? One can debate about that. But yeah, that was it from me. Thank you guys for watching. I really do appreciate every single one of you that has tuned in. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to Blues TV. Also drop a like on this video if you enjoyed it, and especially if you made it this far. Just go down below, drop a like. Doesn't cost you any time, doesn't cost you any money. Just go down below. I would massively appreciate that. And of course, also don't forget to hit the notification bell button and choose to be notified of all uploads so you don't miss any of our future videos. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Up the Chelsea, and I'll see you when I see you.